Hello everyone, welcome to the Ars Electronica Futurelab Creative Question at Ars Electronica Festival 2020. Actually, we are in Linz, and this is live, and Linz has very wonderful weather. My name is Hideaki Ogawa from Ars Electronica Futurelab. I'm a director of the Futurelab. I will be a catalyst and the moderator for this talk session. The Creative Question Challenge, so-called CQC, is a new brainstorming talk session in which speakers explore and present their creative questions in a 30-minute dialogue. Instead of finding one answer immediately or one solution to a question, this session's goal is to explore the question from many angles, 360 degrees, and find more mission in a way really in the future. Our visualizer today, Kerstin, will map the keywords and the questions throughout the session to help us create a compass that leads us to the creative mission in the end. And also, if you are on the YouTube, it would be great to participate in these discussions. Your comments, questions in the live chat might be selected and included in the map. So which means we would like to co-create sort of the missions for tomorrow. Today we have two very special guests. First, Irini Papadimitriou. Welcome. So she's from Greece today, creative director at Future Everything. How are you? Everything's okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hide. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And Thomas Gegenhuber next to me. Welcome. So he's assistant professor for digital transformation at Ljubljaنا University, Lüneburg, as well as an associated researcher at Yotoka, so which is a venue of this year's Ars Electronica Festival. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And also we have, I have my colleague here, so Kerstin Blattabinder. Welcome, and so who is an artist, designer working in the Futurelab. So let's start the show. The theme of this discussion is art and governance, quite a big topic. But the initial question would be, how can we utilize the power of art for the city of the future? So let's begin. Maybe Irini?
Yeah, sure. I will go first. So I'm usually thinking of art's role in society, but also communities as a kind of really important catalyzer, but also like agent that creates safe spaces for conversation, for discourses, and also safe spaces to allow us to participate and ask questions, which is something that we often forget about. The importance of asking more questions about how things are happening around us. The importance of having a space where we can have our voices heard and talk to other people and not feel that we're being judged. So from this perspective, and in this, I feel that art has a really significant role in urban spaces, in cities, in terms of bringing people together, in bringing citizens together to enable them to have conversations, to have exchange, creative, but also critical thinking and critical conversations, and help us to, in this way, to process happening and maybe think about potential actions for the future.
Mm-hmm. My take on this, and I want to build on that, what Irini says, is there's every discipline is really great at something. And then I think what I appreciate, I mean, I'm not an artist, I'm a scientist. What I appreciate about art is that art is really great at looking what the future could look like. Because everything what we do, we need action, we need a direction, and art can imagine and visualize futures and visualize that so we know where we want to go. And I think that's where art is particularly strong. That's the one aspect where I think, and especially what should cities look like, where art can make a contribution. A second thing is, and I'm always inspired by Joseph Beuys' approach to art. And he always makes the point, social sculptures, that art should, a form of art is changing the society, that we make art pieces that change the way or change this very social fabric that we live in. And that being said, that's where I believe we have intersection between art and also politics, because who shapes the city? It's the politics. That we, I think, scientists, but also artists would benefit from also seeing politics as a form of art. Like, how do you shape the city? Where do you build something? What are the regulations that you enact that inherently change the way how we live? And that itself, I would say, is an art in itself, because how do you, like if in the city of Linz, 200,000 people, how do you do that you change a city? There's nothing harder than changing the social fabric.
And also, just I would like to mention about this year, 2020. So I would like to ask, how do you sense the COVID-19 pandemic influence to our such situations to our city, connecting to today's discussion? So maybe I think why we are talking about this art and governance is, of course, one fundamental point is because of this, the situation. What do you think?
I think for me, if I can, if I may go, is that the current crisis that we're going through and the pandemic, it kind of worked as a reminder, I guess, for many people, presenting us with the fragility of our systems, the fragility of our ecologies and ecosystems as well, and the world, trying and making us think about ideas of care and maintenance, and how do we need to kind of, and the urgent need for looking after what we have surrounding us. And in particular, I'm thinking about, of course, the people who made everything possible while it was in their privileged space, just away, locked down from pandemic, but also at the same time care workers, nurses, doctors, cleaning the streets, etc., who have been there and to keep everything going. But also another thing that makes me that the pandemic makes me always think is that how we construct what does, like our education systems, like technology systems, world, and how much all these have been dysfunctional and excluding people that we didn't think about. And I'm hoping that this is going to be a lesson in terms of starting to rethink how we construct these architect spaces, and maybe thinking it from a different perspective and going beyond trying to be just for everyone and create space and consider everyone, not just a small part of the globe.
Yeah, maybe Thomas.
Yeah, and I'm gonna jump in, and what I like, I really think city and governance, the notion of space is very important, because this is where the place that we inhabit and experience in our day-to-day interactions, when we go out of the door, go on the street, and what happens on the street, governance starts there. So I agree, I think for me the question is, and building on that, how can we use the public space? Like also, like as artists, like inviting us, the COVID thinking us, how can we go back on the street and reach more people, and like reach more people with the artworks and inspire them to think about the world we live in. But also from a governance perspective is who has what kind of, or who takes the most space in a city? Is it cars? Is it bike lanes? Is it the individual commuters? And I mean, I'm living currently also in Berlin, and of course it was interesting to see that you now have to pop up bike lanes showing up anywhere, but then you also see like the unintended effects of such a COVID crisis, because public transport suffered through the crisis. And individual car transportation and bike transportation became more important. So there's, I think every crisis in its fundamental way is something, an invitation to rethink the ways we do. That's documented in the social science literature. Every crisis, always change happens for the better or for the worse. At the end, it's up to us which change we want to enact. But in terms of I think transportation, I think here is a chance to give us, the people in the cities, more space, and makes it not only more sustainable, but also probably healthier. Yeah, that's my big question.
Absolutely. So it's really up to us how to utilize this opportunity. So and also I think. Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Maybe just, Thomas, it's really interesting what you've been saying about public space, because one thing that I have been a lot during the pandemic and the lockdown in particular, and time we've been spending online, is that we need also to think of like online spaces and the internet as a public space, and in the context of commons, and how only from an access perspective, but also in terms of like how the we've been imagined as individuals is very much about commercialism, and we have been we're mainly viewed as consumer ends, right? And I think there is a need to rethink, and it's very similar with what you were saying with public space, with the city and the high streets. Our cities are not just for shopping or like for consuming; it's also for like places that where we need to gather, to talk critically, to discuss. I'm just thinking like at the very used Greek term, like the agora as well, and this kind of term of like and idea of like the space of the gathering space, and where decisions are being made, but also questions are being asked, right?
And just to add to that, and I really think about, and I think you need to combine both, because Facebook and a shopping mall have a lot in common. It's a space where you only play with certain rules and certain things are not allowed, and I mean TikTok is even far more worse. But and don't get me wrong, I think there is a space for a shopping mall in the city. But if the entire city becomes a shopping mall, then it gets super boring. And who wants to live in the city? And I think what the question we should ask ourselves is, for the varieties, because we have so many different backgrounds in the city. You like something different than I do, and everyone likes something different. Of course, there are clusters, but for the multiplicity of perspectives, how can we create different spaces in the city for the multitude of reflecting the multitudes and the diversity of a city, so that not just one opinion or view of life takes over and says this is how the shitty city should look like.
Yeah, then also considering the in a way hybrid aspect of physical city, and also in a digital community as well. The public spaces are really up to us how to make the balance. But as you mentioned, I think for whom, so are we talking about? I think, of course, we are talking about for citizens, right? For creating the agendas and also for policy, we needed to involve the students. And for doing so, how to make social questions, how to make social experiments, or how to invite audience, and how the art can be used for those processes. I think it's going to be quite an important aspect, probably. But Irini, maybe from your experiences regarding raising the social questions, how is it difficult, and how is art creating the opportunities for doing so?
I think it is really amazing that to find like artistic communities, individuals as well, and collectives, but also how, in terms of like how they organize groups, how they come together to respond to these ideas, and as I was saying earlier, like to create these spaces. I think we need to give space to process, give space to experimentation and to kind of inquiry as well. It's something also that I wanted to kind of bring back from the digital communities process that we had with Thomas in the jury, which was really interesting. For example, there were some really interesting examples there of artistic but also non-artistic communities, and how they organize and how they act and they create change in their environments. And I'm thinking of two examples, like the Algorithmic Justice League with Joy Bolamini, and how their important work in addressing the injustice, discrimination in algorithmic systems, for example, can create first steps to change, in this case for in facial recognition, but also communities like Indigemoji, where it shows us how artists and creative thinking and artistic thinking can change, can shape technologies or corporate kind of ideas as well. In this case, using emojis for to address digital colonialism and the need to kind of for a diversity and in language, but also in the westernized systems that we have everywhere.
I have 2 points in response to your question and comments. The one thing is, and I really, Irini and I, this was a pleasure to look at these 400 communities seeking to drive social and political and cultural change. And I always feel like communities are, they create a niche, and they create blueprints or models of, hey, we could do this differently, because someone needs to figure out, if you do it, you see in a small scale, does it work out? And then you can scale it up. And this is where we have a division of labor a little bit in society, because some things small communities can do, but if you want to scale up in the public realm, then government and other societal actors come in. And then brings me to the question, not only how can we scale up niche communities, it's also how can we change the mode of working in politics. Because in politics, if you do an innovation and you try something out and you fail, you get bad media and people say you're a failure. If you're an artist or you're working in a common innovation lab, it's like you do prototyping, we make a beta version, and if the beta version works, we're going to scale it up. If it doesn't work, okay, at least we made an informed learning process. And I think this domain that we expect politicians to be perfect and errorless, I think if we want to see innovation and more interaction with communities to happen, we need to grant also politics to say, hey, you can make informed, don't get me wrong, I don't want that people just run around and make mistakes and then you call it prototyping, but informed error and learning is something I think which would facilitate the transaction between local communities and local governments or national governments, and facilitating more exchange to drive social change. That would be my question.
Okay, so how can we, encourage such, cultural producer or doers to connect those different disciplinaries and also experiments in the society? So what do you think? What's the issues now? Because, of course, we can talk about this point, but I'm going to really go to the, fundamental issues, because CQC is talking about the really critical questions. We know this idea, but what's missing? So in connecting, artists' prototypes and experimentations concept and reality, or policy or scale up, what do you think? what's missing for scaling up or connecting linkage between art and governance?
I'm not sure if I have an answer to that yet, but I think we do at Futurelab work a lot with different groups, with policymakers. We work a lot with local government and industry as well, and businesses, and obviously we work with artists because this is the main thing of what we do, and really. In many cases, for example, you see small actions and things that start from experimentation. And as you were saying before, I totally agree. I think we need to give more time to think about, to allow failure, for example, but also to allow play and coming together. But also at the same time, it doesn't mean that this will change the world or go somewhere. But I think from my perspective is that even sometimes is the small actions can make a significant support. So was like positive ways of doing things. And this is something that I'm missing right now because of the current crisis and because of all the different media and news that we hear. I think sometimes I feel overwhelmed by the negative things in the world, and I think we need to have more positive stories to present, and also even if they are very small, even if they are too small for policymakers or for governments, I think we need to kind of to focus on this and see how they can inspire us to go to the next step, because we need to do a lot of work. And one thing that I would like to also mention and close with is that for me the pandemic and COVID is proof that we can change things. For example, we reduced our travel. There was no travel, and then there was immediately, like, we saw the positive impact on the environment, on the CO2 levels. I think there are definitely ways that we can change things. So we can't change our habits. The thing is that we need, how do we enable ourselves? How do we push ourselves to take this step without, of course, waiting for the next crisis to arrive when it might be too late?
I'm just going to be briefly in terms of how can we create more empathy for each other's roles. So people believe artists are lazy, but it's actually hard work to do hard work. And then people have also their prejudice about politicians. And I think we should have empathy for each other's roles and its function. I think we should give each other, and I like the time, we are so focused on the noise. Politics is fast business, and give the politics more time to think on the issues that really matter and not just always the small media stories. So that's important. And I think that's the job of politics, of course, develop participative formats where different societal actors come together and engage in dialogue. This, I think, where politics should have the leading role.
So now 5 minutes before ending, and we needed to crystallize, kind of share the mission as a team today. So maybe let's have a look at the flow of today's discussion from the middle board. So we've discussed, original question was how can we utilize the power of art in the city of the future? And we went to many directions by Thomas and Irini. And now we are, I think, talking about the way to, how to, in a way, connect art and governance effectively, and what's missing. We talked about quite critical issues and points, but Thomas mentioned that, like, how to enhance the empathy in different communities and different sectors, and how to fill in the gap between slow decision, slow cultural kind of backgrounds and quick, political decisions. I think those are kind of main areas that we are now talking about. So then let's focus on the, very fundamental questions that we needed to tackle. And also we would say something, one statement together. So maybe from Irini, can you propose something?
I would say maybe going slowly and reflecting. I think this is probably what made us end up in this situation, just how fast we do things and we consume things. So maybe go slowly would be a way.
Go slowly, yeah.
And I think my mission is really what are the different formats that we can work together to produce solutions. So I think one mission could be, say, as a government, hey, for certain kind of problems, we bring this kind of citizens together, like a hackathon, which was also happening in Germany for the COVID crisis, and then we work together in solutions and we help build that. That we are all in this together, and it's not just like bringing people together and helping them to move along the journey. Of course, with the big challenge, how we can ensure that people can participate who don't have the material resources to do so. Because if you're in a 40 hours job or you have 3 jobs, then thinking about political participation is hard because you simply don't have the time about it. So that's also a big challenge.
So in this case, like let's go slow, but flexible, quick.
No, yeah, and let's go slow and let's go together.
Yeah, let's go together. Let's go slow, let's go together. I think it's really, so good mission for us, because now, we are in a way really uncertain situations. But actually our society and our life itself is originally and naturally uncertain, right? But maybe the situation might be giving us such things, but maybe Thomas,
go focus slowly, because we, of course, climate change, we need a lot of change rapidly. Yeah. But actually thinking and knowing a path makes it faster than just jumping around all the time.
I think so. Irene?
Yeah, totally agree. I think, yes, slow and focused is definitely the way forward.
Yeah. So I think then, our creative question today is very essential, but how to connect art and the government is, of course, very fundamental, because it was a really huge gap. But our mission and our statement of trade is go focus slowly and create different formats to bring people together. So let's go slow. Let's what was it? Let's do together.
Yes.
So that was, I think, today's outcome of this CQC. But we have really many things to do, for doing so.
Yeah, we can do this.
Yeah. We needed to really update this, our ongoing status time to time. Can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we can do everything.
So thank you very much. And thank you, Irene and Thomas and Kristen.
Thank you for having me.
So see you next time.